All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Corning Museum of Glass on our March 2300. How's everyone doing today? Good. We got a small but mighty crowd here gathering in the amphitheater of the Corning Museum of Glass. We want to introduce our guest artist for tonight. This is Austin Stern, and he is a Seattle artist. Yeah, let's give him a big round of applause. Fantastic. We've got a really fantastic piece planned for all you folks, and we'd like to get a shout out to the online as well. I know a lot of friends out in Seattle are going to be watching and all around the world, so we welcome you all to joining us here tonight. We're really excited about this piece. This is going to be an assemblage. We've got a few examples of Austin's work here sitting out on the tables, but he loves making these monsters or creatures, and so tonight is going to be a four-legged creature. And so we've already made a lot of the parts and components, because to make one of these pieces takes days. There are a lot of parts, a lot of cane work, a lot of things go into the making of a piece that then gets assembled together. So we're starting out throughout the day and really throughout the week. He's been with us all week long doing both the pieces that you see here and a few others. And so we've got lots of things to play with tonight, so it should be a really exciting night. If anyone has any questions or anything, my name is Helen, so please feel free to either write in online or come on up to the glass and let us know what we can do to answer questions for you tonight. But we did get started slightly before the program started to air online, as I said, just to try to get as far as we could ahead of the game. But this is going to be the top section of this creature. So this will be punted or transferred right now, transferring from one iron to another. For all you glass geeks out there, I will put some terminology on here throughout the evening, but this is using a blow punny, because he's going to be further shaping this on the other side. So light little tap, and we've got our first transfer of the evening. Yeah, she knows what to do. A little excitement. Yeah. So this is going to be transferred over. This is going to be blown out and will be more of a rounded form with a flat bottom, and then have four legs hanging off of theirs, or mounted onto four legs. And then, as you can see from the creatures that he has out already, they've got little faces and a lot of personality in all these parts. So we also have some components in our garage that will be assembled on, that will be little creatures along with the bigger creature. So we're going to have little faces. All the little faces go on last. So we're going to build all of this up and then eventually add all those cute little faces. So just to introduce you to some of the other folks that we have here on the team tonight, this is Jeff Mack. He's going to be turning pole here and doing a lot of lifting for us tonight. Dane Jack is also joining us. Catherine Ayers, I think she ran off to get some equipment, but she's with us here tonight. So we've got the all-star team of Corning glassworkers to assist Austin Stern in the making of this creature. Just to let you know as well, we also have live music happening in the auditorium. Tris Kelly is an Irish band, four women in that band. I have not heard them before, so I'm really excited to have them with us and have a little Irish music this evening. So definitely check them out. And of course, we have lots of food and beverages around the museum this evening for you to take advantage of. I also want to mention to those of you who are here in-house that Austin actually has a few really beautiful pieces for sale in the shop, and a nice display right in the opening of that shop. So take a few moments to visit, of course, our shops. We've got also 23% off, of course, all regular priced items during 2300. I don't know if that includes his artwork, but his artwork is for sale, and at least see it in person. You might even get a personal signature if you get it tonight while he's here for the evening. But those will be there in that shop to check out throughout the evening as well. So it's a great question. We had someone ask, is this going to look like the creatures that you see, or the little monsters that you see here tonight? This is actually a different style. I'll draw a little picture. I can't do what he does justice, but it's, from what I understand, it's going to be a little bit more of a rounded top with 4 little legs, and then a few little creatures hanging out on top. So something like that. Is that doing it justice? All right, awesome. I appreciate that. Good. Yeah. That drawing for sale? Well, priceless for this evening. I know he's got some images on his iPad, and maybe he can bring those up at some point. But that's really the basic, so a bit different. But I believe this is also a style that he's made before. He's been working on these creatures since about 2015, he said. And so when you start to develop a body of work, you, of course, put your own heart and soul into it, and you make discoveries as you go along. And so this is just one in many of his explorations on these personalities. Now, he's also one of our featured artists for the Future exhibition that's opening in May, the New Glass Now. And so this is one of the reasons why we brought Austin in for this residency. Throughout the summer, we will be bringing in artists who are showing work in that New Glass review, a New Glass Now exhibition. So he's just the first of our grouping of artists, and he does have a few pieces. I think it's 3 pieces, right? It's a grouping of 3 in the New Glass. Yeah, so a grouping of 3 in the New Glass Now exhibition. Those of you who might not be familiar with that, that is also a publication. It's typically a publication done by the Corning Museum of Glass. Every year, artists from around the world send in images to try to be a part of this publication, and it really is kind of the finger on the pulse of what is happening in glass. And this is an anniversary year, so in addition to having the publication, we're also doing an exhibition with work that has been done within the last 3 years in the glass world. So it's a very exciting summer to come and visit the Corning Museum of Glass and see that exhibition opening up, and all of the visiting artists that are going to be coming to do demonstrations, both in-house and, of course, keeping an eye on those live streams that will be happening almost every Thursday of the summer. Now, as he's getting started here, we did put this onto a blow punny. That's so that we can re-inflate this once this has been resealed. So he is using some tweezers, tweezing out the top of this form, and eventually it will be closed down and then reformed into the top of that. Something close to my drawing, I'm sure a little bit more exacting to his specifications, but it'll be a really nice kind of mushroom top to this creature. Now, you might also notice there is some patterning on the surface of both the creatures that he has already finished and the one that we're working with tonight. And so we've got a couple of samples and examples if anyone would like to come up closer to take a look. But these are the colors that we're looking at for this top section. Now, they're a combination of cane and solid colors. So glass color made by adding metal compounds and oxides. So he's got a nice foundation color and then lots of stripes on the surface. So all those stripes are cane, and I believe this is the purple and blue is what it looks like for this top section. Now, it's not going to look anything like itself when it's hot, of course. So you'll want to keep an eye on our social media and maybe come back in the next couple days to be able to see this piece once it comes out of the annealing oven. But we always do document a lot of these things and put them up online, so keep an eye on Corning's website or the Facebook account, Instagram, all of those fun things. The social media will have lots of images of this work and the event here tonight. All right, so slowly closing down the top of this form. You want to not marl it up too much, make a big mess of that connection, so it really terminates all of those cane into a nice little point right there on the end, and he'll break that free, creating a sealed bubble. Now, one of the challenging things about making things out of glass is that you do typically need to transfer it at some point and put a punty or a transfer iron onto it. Now, the beauty of these blow punties is that even though we've put it onto that transfer, we've broken it from the pipe, by leaving a small hole in the bottom of this form and putting essentially a hollow punty on it, we can still blow through that pipe. So we can continue to add air pressure and do major shaping on the top of this form, even though it's no longer on the original blowpipe. You can get a lot of forms that aren't possible just by having one direction or the other by using this kind of methodology. All right, so we had a great question online. It says, is there a hole in the base of this piece? And the answer is yes. Where that blow punty is attached to the piece, not only is the punty essentially like a donut, so that the pipe is clear, there's actually a hole that has been drilled in the bottom of that, or the base of that piece, so that when we blow through the pipe, it can go through that hole and reinflate the vessel. This is going to be a double transfer, so eventually he's going to drill a hole in the top of this, and we'll reattach another punty to the top of what we're looking at. And then there's going to be a lot of holes drilled in this piece, actually, because we have 4 hollow legs to add to the base. And so each one of those need to have a hole added to the piece before they're joined. And then each little ball creature that's going to go on our creature will also need to have a hole drilled. So we were counting it up earlier, and we've got at least 5, 6, maybe 9, up to 9 or 10 holes that will be drilled into this piece when it's all said and done. And we're just using tungsten to make that happen. So you can take a piece of tungsten typically used for welding, and it is a nice strong metal that doesn't stick to the glass very much. So you get it hot, you keep spinning, and it just reams down through the glass to create the hole. Austin's using a bit of newspaper here. This is a great shaping tool for hot glass. It's essentially like grabbing the glass with your hand. Now, I don't advise that, but we love to do that as makers, get our hands involved in the process. Typically, we need to have tools, of course, to get hold of 2,000-degree hot glass, but the newspaper ends up being a very favorite tool of a lot of glass makers because of its versatility. You can squeeze it, you can use it flat, you can really conform it to whatever shape your hand needs to be, and that can translate, of course, directly into the glass as you're shaping. Now you're going to see a lot of torch work tonight as well. We've got 2 types of torches, a fluffy torch and a hot torch. Torches, of course, give you concentrated areas of heat. And when you have a big flat form like this, it's hard for the heat to penetrate around that piece to really keep the flat section hot enough. So we'll be periodically rewarming that punty, making sure no one part of this piece gets too cold as it's being made. So the fluffy torch is just gas, and that's a pretty warm but fluffy torch, and then the other one is our hot torch, which is oxygen and gas, and then that burns very, very hot. So we'll use that one to do a lot more detail work or to give more intense heat. Well, it looks like Austin's getting ready to drill another one of those many holes that will be in our piece this evening. So as you can see, he warms this metal up. Now, normally, hot things stick to hot things. If you have warm metal, that's what we need to do to get the glass to stick to it. But tungsten magically does not stick as long as you don't get the glass too hot. And so he's just using that torch to warm up that bit and rotating through, and it just drills right through the top of the form. All right, so that was a pretty quick shape. He's got that basic form all finished, but now it's time to transfer it back yet onto another iron so that we can start to add those legs and all the different parts onto the piece. So Dane Jack's over here on the secondary bench. He's just warming up the glass, shaping up this future punty to be brought and attached. I always find that to be one of the more stressful parts of assisting in a piece, especially if it's not your own piece. You really want to make sure everything goes well. And making a punty, you can be hired and fired by your ability to make a good punty, because really it all comes down to keeping it attached to the piece and keeping it the right shape, getting it the right temperature, making sure it's not going to fall off before you want it to remove at the end of the process. And so learning to make nice punnies really does become a very important skill. Now, in the end, part of this punny will most likely remain on the top of the piece. So we're going to cut in a jack line, nice tight constriction that'll allow this to be broken at that line and not the connection to the piece. You don't want to run the risk of breaking some of that piece away. So by leaving that on, then you can hand this over to the cold workers, who are the champions of the finishing process, and they'll just grind away any excess. Now, Austin did say earlier he does not do his cold working on his own, so he'll have some good friends back in Seattle that'll take care of finishing this piece for him when it's complete. Little bit of water on that original punny, light tap, and the crowd goes wild. Woo! I always hate to jinx it, but that is a dangerous moment for the glass, trading from one to the other. A lot of potential hazards. So we're always really grateful when that goes smoothly. All right, so the crowds are really starting to fill in here at the Corning Museum of Glass. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Sounds like we've got over about 120 people online watching as well. So we welcome everyone here to the 2300 event here in March. There's a lot of excitement going down on the hot shop floor. We also, of course, have our live band playing in the amphitheater down here, so definitely lots of fun things going on at the Corning Museum tonight. We have Austin Stern as our guest artist, and he is making one of the, from his series of monsters. He's making a monster for us tonight. This monster will have extra little monsters on the top. Now, these two pieces that we have down in front and, of course, in the store, these are a slight different version. Tonight's version will have 4 legs and a nice little round top and a couple little creatures on the top. And so we're assembling a lot of parts tonight. All of these parts were made prior to this evening's activities because it takes a couple days to get all the parts together to make a beautiful piece like this tonight. Yeah, so we did have a couple of questions here. One was, are these items for sale? Well, he does have a few pieces available. They're totally for sale, he says. Yes, Austin's work is for sale. We do have austinstern.com, his Instagram at sternglass, but you can definitely check out a few items while you're here tonight in our store out front. He has a few beautiful monsters out there available for purchase. And he does commissions, he says. So if you've got a particular monster you want to, colors or something, perhaps he can talk to you this evening as well. And I'm sure you can contact him through that austinstern.com. The second question was, does he have pieces, or what will the pieces be in the New Glass Now exhibition that we're having opening here at the Corning Museum of Glass in May? And yes, he has 3 monsters that will be in that show. We're very excited for that show to open. There's been a lot of conversation, a lot of hubbub, but we haven't seen all the pieces yet. So they've been working hard assembling that show, and I want to check on the date. Yeah, that show opens May 12th. So you'll definitely want to come here to the Corning Museum of Glass on May 12th for that opening, or visit anytime throughout the summer. That will be up throughout the summer. And as part of the New Glass Now exhibition, we have invited quite a few artists to come here to the Corning Museum and do demonstrations for us throughout the summer. So you'll want to keep an eye on our social media and find out who's coming when and where, and see who all's going to be making what throughout the summer. I know we've got a lot of Thursday evening live feeds that will be happening throughout the summer as well. So if you're not local, no worries. You can check us out online, just like you are this evening, and see some of this fantastic work that's going to be coming throughout the summer. The New Glass Now exhibition celebrates the top 100 pieces that were selected for the exhibition and the publication for this particular year. But every year, the Corning Museum of Glass creates this New Glass review publication, and it really is the top glass in the world that we're representing in that publication. So we've got Dane Jack now joining us, of course, on the pipe. Catherine Ayers, lovely assistant for tonight as well. Jeff Mack is going to be jumping in and out throughout the evening. My name is Helen Tegler. If you have any questions, we also have, of course, Minna here on the computer answering all your online questions. She's getting pretty good at answering questions online, but if there's ever a doubt, she'll ask one of us. So go ahead and send in those questions and give a shout out to Austin here tonight. So really we're going to smooth out that punty. A little bit of glass was left from that original punty, the blow punty that was added. So just trying to tuck that in, smooth it out. Using the hot torch here tonight, those are really great additions to concentrate a lot of intense heat in one particular area. If you get the whole thing hot, it'll start to collapse. So you can really focus in a lot of heat with those hot torches. These are actually originally flame working torches. We have lots of flame workers that come here to the Corning Museum of Glass to take classes and workshops. We also have a wonderful team that does demonstrations throughout the day, and you can see that flame working examples here while you're visiting. But this original torch would be mounted to a table using rods and tubing to create objects out of glass. But the hot glass workers got a little jealous. We had to pull that into the hot shop, and it really has revolutionized the type of work that we've been able to accomplish with the addition of that torch. All right, we've got an online question. One of our most popular questions: how much does that weigh? Well, that's a really hard thing to tell exactly, but I would guesstimate right now we're only looking at about 10 to 15 pounds worth of glass. By the time we assemble all the different parts together, it's probably going to be closer to maybe 20 pounds of glass. But when you put it on the end of a 4-foot pole, it's going to feel even heavier. So we're going to see a lot of sweating up here, a lot of heavy lifting, and back and forth to that reheating chamber. But glass is, it definitely feels a lot heavier when it's on the pole. Now, glass does shrink ever so slightly when it is put away into the oven as the glass cools. And I know that every glass worker out there will say, well, by the time I pulled it out, I thought it was so much heavier and bigger, but it shrank when it came in the oven. But we really don't notice that shrinking too much. It's a fairly small percentage, but definitely feel all of that weight when you're hauling it around on the end of a long pole. Have any other questions out here in the audience that I can answer for anyone? All right, so we did have a question up front about his interest in glass. He did end up being introduced to glass in high school. So he's from the Bay Area and took a class in high school and really got hooked on it and kept taking classes and eventually went to Emporia State. So he also has a Bachelor of Fine Arts, and he's been an artist out in Seattle for, I think, about 10 years. How long have you been out in Seattle? Yeah, 6 years. Okay, so about 6 years out in Seattle, and really is developing a lot of his own work. He has, of course, worked for other artists. That is a very common thing to do, but he's really building himself up as that independent artist with a lot of these really wonderful pieces. But yes, his interest started all the way back in high school. It's a very common thing for glass workers. There's not a lot of factories left to introduce people to the art and craft of glassmaking, and so most people are learning in educational facilities. You're looking at places like the Corning Museum of Glass, which is a community access studio where you can come and take classes and workshops, and then, of course, looking at universities and high schools. There's not as many high school programs, but if you are in a region that has one, that's a great opportunity to get started young. And I think we've got a couple components that we're going to start picking up here. As I mentioned earlier, a lot of these parts were made prior to what you're seeing here tonight, just because it takes so much time to pull the cane and make the parts and make all these things to ready to assemble to the final object. And so in this pickup box here, this is basically a glass babysitter. So all the pieces we made, we put them in there, and they're staying safe, warm, and happy in that oven until we go after them. So Jeff has made a punty. No, he just wanted that one first, he said. So there we've got our first leg. So in that glass babysitter, all of those pieces have been staying safe, warm, and happy throughout the afternoon. As we finish them, we put them away. And now we can bump the temperature back up just a little hotter so that they are as hot as we can get them without moving. We don't want them to change shape in that glass babysitter. We just want them to stay safe and in one piece. And so we pick them up, and he'll flash that a few times, and we'll start to assemble this piece together. Now, we do have some samples of the colors he's working with. A lot of the colors are very different when they're hot. But we've got two different types of legs. We've got 4 legs, and 2 of them are made from this beautiful orange and light green, and 2 of them are made from the orange and the light blue. And so as he puts them together, the core color is the same. And I can't remember what the core color was. I think it was an orange color. So there's two different colors, or 2 different assemblages, and those were made as one pull. So we took canes, rods of glass, just like you see there. These rods were rolled up on the outside of a bubble, and then creating that pattern, and then formed into those legs. Now, I did just see Austin mark the piece. As we mentioned earlier, these are going to be assembled. All of them are hollow. You don't want to seal bubbles onto a form because glass expands and contracts as it heats and it cools, or the air does. So if you start to have a softened bit of glass and it's trapped in there, all the air will start to shrink, and then it will suck in and change the shape, or it'll start to expand and blow out the form. And so anytime you're going to put a hollow thing sealed on something, you want to drill a hole. So he's once again returning to that tungsten to drill the 4 holes for the 4 legs, and then we'll have to drill holes for the other little bubbles that we made. So it's going to be a lot of holes drilled into this form tonight. There we're getting a nice view. Well, we had a nice view a second ago of one of those legs. Now, when we do go to put these together, we need hot things to stick to hot things. So we're going to use these torches to concentrate heat just on the connection points of this piece. you don't want to have the forms themselves too hot or they'll start moving around and all that hard work that Austin has done to make it so beautiful will get all mangled up. So we're really going to concentrate the heat only on the connection points. And I think you guys are really going to love this. He's going to take some heat protective gloves and grab hold of those legs to put them onto the bottom of the piece. Gives him a little bit more control over where and how those will be attached nicely. All right, getting ready for that first leg. Little thermal shock, light tap. Those Kevlar gloves allow him to hold that glass almost 2,000 degrees. And it's stuck. Woo! Yeah, you can give him a big round of applause. Yeah. Now those two hot components, that connection is still a little warm. So this is his one and only chance to really tweak it into the perfect position. Once this sets up, you don't want to go back in, get anything too hot, start moving things around, because then the form can start to push and pull. And remember, we've got 3 more legs to add. So if you don't get the first one in the right position and you try to get the other ones hot, everybody's going to start waggling around and maybe even sticking together. So you really want to work one step at a time to get everything connected just right before you move on. All right, Jeff's going in for another one of those legs, while Austin gets the positioning of this next piece just right. Nice action shot of that hole drilling there. All right, we had a really great question up here in the front. They said that torch, they'd never seen an oxygen acetylene torch like this. This is actually a flame worker's torch. So it is oxygen and propane. But by adding the oxygen, of course, it burns hotter than standard flame or gas alone fire. So it's got a really great opportunity to have a clean flame. Usually we don't get acetylene involved too much in glass making because it's so dirty of a flame. The only time I've ever seen an acetylene torch used for glass is if you're casting, if you're doing sand casting, you actually just turn that acetylene on and then you dust the surface of the sand to make a carbon layer to pour into. But you never actually use acetylene using on glass because it usually will leave some schmutz and dirt all over the surface. Yeah, great question. So it is a flameworker's torch. If you've never seen it in action out of the hot shop, it's really using for flameworking rods and tubing to create objects out of glass. And so if you come down to the museum during one of our regular demo days, you can see that up in the innovations area. We've got daily demonstrations on the use of that torch with flameworking, typically mounted to the table. You, of course, can also take classes and workshops right across the street at the studio where you can take and learn to work with those torches with glass to make beads, sculptures, lots of fun things. Our summer programming is really an exciting thing to check out online and schedule yourself an opportunity to come and take a class. Here goes leg number 2. It's got to line it up with that hole. Remember, we've drilled holes so that as that is attached, it does not become a sealed component. We want to be able to continue airflow through that piece, letting it go in and out so that the piece stays stable. Otherwise, if it's hot, it'll expand. And I got to blow right now. So these little paddles that he's using, these are cork paddles. You can grab hold of the glass, touch the glass with cork, and it's not going to be cold, it's not going to be hot. So it's kind of a neutral thing that won't shock the glass, won't leave tool marks, and so it's a really great tool to be able to shape glass in those real subtle ways there. One of the things that's really difficult, of course, is glass is soft. It takes on texture. If it's touched with tools, if it's even touched with newspaper, sometimes you can end up getting it stuck. So you have to be really conscientious about the temperatures that you're working with and how you touch the glass. If you look at handmade glass, you can almost always see at least one mark of the maker, which is also kind of awesome. You can see all of that hard work, all of the training, and the touch of the maker in every single piece that is made from fresh glass. Now, even though Austin has a really wonderful cold worker back in Seattle, we want to make as least amount of work possible for that cold worker. So he's taking all those punny marks, the connections that were on there just to transfer the piece from one to the other, to torch those off, smooth them out so that the legs will be finished when the piece is done. The only cold working I think that will need to be done is the punty mark on that piece. Oh, he says he might chop the legs. It's really a free-for-all here tonight. We never know what's going to come out on the end of the pole. All right, so I just got a little secret info. It turns out, I thought that he had maybe made a piece like this before. But as you can see, the two pieces that are here in the shop, and then of course we have a few in our shop for sale, and then you can check them out at austinstern.com. These are very classic figures that he's been working on, but he said he's never made one like he's made here tonight. So this is a really special night to observe brand new work being created here before your eyes. Austin has been with us as a resident artist for the entire week, developing new skills, practicing new forms, working with our team to make all of his dreams come true here in the hot shop. So really exciting to see brand new work coming out of that residency, culminating here on the 2300. Also want to remind everyone that we have live music happening in our auditorium, a great 4-woman band called Triskelly. Has anybody gone and heard the music yet? How is it? Good, excellent. So come in and out of the amphitheater, go check out the music, go get yourself a drink. This is one of our 2300. This is a really fun open night for the public here at the Corning Museum of Glass. And we love that we're online. I know earlier we had over 120 people online. I imagine that has grown in numbers, but the auditorium and the amphitheater are getting packed full down here at the Corning Museum of Glass. So we welcome you all, and of course a special shout out to all those folks back in Seattle that work with Austin. I'm sure there's quite a few of you out there watching here tonight. right, going in for that fourth and final leg. Now when things come out of those ovens, they are in a very critical temperature. They're warm, but you don't want to change their temperature too quickly. You don't want to shock them. We can't get them too hot or they'll start to change shape while they're in that oven. So it's usually a quick flash right into the hole and then going down there to the smaller one so that he can start to really build the heat he needs in that piece. You can see a lot of flame happening here tonight, a lot of torches. It's really important to find the perfect heat balance. If any one part of this piece gets too cold, it could start to crack. So they're going to do a lot of flash heating, a lot of torch working, especially on that punty. You have a nice broad form like this. It's really hard to get the heat to crawl back around there. As he goes into that reheating chamber, coming out of that reheating chamber, you can see it's kind of like a big stop. So it's blocking a lot of the heat, so you need to do a lot of heat maintenance with those torches. Coming on, putting that first or that last leg on here. No worries though, this is not the end of the process. We still have a couple little monsters to put on the top of the monster. So we've still got some more parts and components in our ovens waiting for their time to shine. But we're here with Austin Stern here tonight. He's a Seattle-based artist, grew up in the Bay Area, went to school in Kansas at Emporia. Woo! Yeah, let's get a shout out for Emporia over here. Started learning to work with glass in high school. So he says he's got over 15 years of glass making experience and has been working on this series of monsters since about 2015. If you want to see a couple more up close and personal, definitely check out the shops here in the Corning Museum of Glass. He's got a few really beautiful pieces right out front. I really love all the expression on each one of them. They got a little something different in each monster. Probably the friendliest monsters I've ever seen. So definitely check those out. And of course, if you're feeling like you can't live without them, those are for sale that are out there in the shops as well. So you can get a personalized signature here tonight if you support Austin Stern and this beautiful work. You can also check out his website, austinstern.com, and his Instagram at sternglass. But anybody got a question? Anybody? How's everybody doing out there? You enjoying the show? Yeah, let's get a big round of applause for Austin. How are you feeling here tonight? You doing good? Yeah. Feeling great. Feeling great. Fantastic. Very focused, he says. Yeah, it takes a lot of orchestration to get a piece like this put together. As I said, he's been here since Monday, making parts, making pieces, kind of working with the team. Even just getting used to working with new people can also take a little bit of time. So you're seeing a culmination of a week's worth of hard work coming together for this really fun creature here tonight. Now, I love that he's actually doing this by hand here tonight, grabbing hold of those legs. You got a lot more control. As makers, we always want to get in and touch the material, which isn't always advisable as glass makers, but when you have those heat protective Kevlar gloves, it gives you a lot of options. Beautiful. One thing that's really impressed me about the pieces that I've seen so far, not only in the shop here in the amphitheater and out in the main area of the museum, but also seeing his work online, there's just so much personality in each one of these pieces. Now again, this is a very first time he's ever made a monster in this style, so I already love so much undulation of the legs, a lot of extra personality being put into this piece here tonight. It's always exciting to watch artists develop new work, and so you can be a part of that here tonight at the museum. It's really great to see Austin exploring and pushing into new realms in his work. He's been working on this series since 2015, so I'm sure there's been a lot of learning mistakes and successes in the development of that new work. It's always fun to watch an artist and a master really hone their craft. Yeah, so did they tungsten the legs or just the base? Now the legs themselves, they are hollow bubbles, but we did not need to poke a hole in them because they were open on the end. So they're basically like really tall squiggly cups. And so they only really needed to drill the hole in the base of the form so that when they're stuck together, that's that hollow space that runs through the whole piece. So yeah, the legs themselves were not sealed, but they are sealed against the form. Now, in addition to our glass babysitter that is electric box, we also have our gas garage over here. Inside that garage are all the little round monsters. So earlier today, we picked up a series of cane and then made a couple little round balls out of that cup or out of that package of cane. So we've got all of these little round balls. Jeff is starting to move those over to the warm side. The garage is very similar to what you have at home. You can put things in there and not worry about them. They're safe, warm, and happy in that environment. You kind of walk away for a while and come back and it's still there. Now there's a cold side and a hot side. There is flame inside one end of that garage. So you store things in what we call the cold side, and then you coax them over to the warm side so you can pick them up really as hot as you can get them to avoid that thermal shock. So Jeff's just got the tough job there, maneuvering them all around, round balls rolling around in that garage. Like herding cats, he says, yeah. Now I do see a lot of familiar faces in the crowd. Just out of curiosity, how many glass blowers do we have here in the audience? Any glass blowers? Yeah, a couple. How many folks have ever taken a class here at the Corning Museum of Glass Studio? Woo, all right, well, a couple. Well, if you've never had a chance or an opportunity, definitely check out the listing of classes. Take a workshop, take even a 45-minute experience. We love glass here, of course, at the Corning Museum of Glass. And if this doesn't get you excited, I don't know what would get you excited about trying this material. So take an opportunity to come here and visit our collection, visit our artists, and of course, take an opportunity to make some glass while you're with us. Os has been working with glass for about 15 years, and it really shows. He's been doing such a wonderful job all week long making his work and directing the team. That is a skill in its own right, really learning how to put all the parts together, plan a very ambitious piece like this, and being able to get the team really rallied into what you are trying to accomplish. So it's very exciting to have Austin with us. You definitely want to come back in May. We have the opening of the New Glass Now exhibition. And Austin has 3 of his monsters in that exhibition. And of course, our publication comes out every single year, New Glass Review, showing you the latest and greatest of the glass world. Looks like we're getting ready to add the first of our little hitchhikers. These are catching a ride, one monster on another monster. Now these little round balls also are hollow. They do have a hole on the bottom, and he of course made a hole in the main body just like the legs. You don't want to end up sealing that off. I can grab that. I see a big smile on Austin's face. Hopefully the rest of you folks are enjoying this. This is a really fun thing to watch a team of people coming together. Yeah, let's give them a big round of encouragement. When you get to a point in a piece like this, there are really a lot of coordination, a lot of things that are happening, a lot of heat differences in the piece. So there's a lot of delicate balances happening, little conversations happening that you probably can't hear, but focusing heat in certain areas, making sure everything's coming together. But so far, all our little creatures are coming together beautifully. If you do have any questions, feel free to come on down here in front. It's a great view happening down here on the floor, although our cameramen are giving a great image right in all those giant screens. One of our favorites is that inside view of the reheating chamber. That's 2,100 degrees Fahrenheit in there. So the specialized piece of glass protecting our camera in the back really does give us a unique view of the action inside of that heat. So this is a really great question down front, asking about the temperatures in the oven, whether we do them at different temperatures based on what we're doing. Now, in general, we set them at 2,100 degrees Fahrenheit. Our furnace runs consistently all the time. But if you get the glass, if you turn the furnace up, of course, it would heat the glass softer and faster. If you turn it down, then it's going to take longer. Now, when we first started this evening, as we were reheating the first couple components, the team all decided, well, that just seems a little hot. We're running a little hot. It's been hot all day. It's kind of accumulating the heat. The bricks build up heat and give a lot of radiant heat as well. And so we were afraid that once we start adding all those parts, intense heat would start to make things wiggle around. So we did actually turn that reheating chamber down about 100 degrees before we started to assemble. So you can adjust those temperatures according to what you're making. And if you're making something really big and you're opening the doors a lot, it's going to lose a lot of heat. So you might have to bump up the temperature just to make sure that it maintains that temperature. This is a really smart system. It has a set point. You can plug it in and it'll fluctuate and try to keep it steady, but there's only so much that heat can do if you're opening all the doors and losing all that heat all the time. Yeah, great question. Any other questions I can answer? Come on down or shout them out. Or, of course, if you are joining us online, I know we got quite a few folks online as well tonight, so if you have any questions, either Amanda or myself can answer those questions for you as we go along. So those of you in-house might have been watching Jeff Mack over here really working with all the little parts and pieces. Again, we have sort of a cold side and a hot side. So after he picks them up on the end of a hot iron with a little glass on there to hold them, he just hovers over the flame that's on that far left. That brings that glass as warm as possible before we go back into that reheating chamber. Because if you try to change the temperature of glass too quickly, it will crack. Most glass expands and contracts with heat and cooling. Now, exceptions would be, of course, products like Pyrex. Pyrex have boron added to it, so it resists that expansion contraction. So if you're working with borosilicate glass either as a torch worker or, of course, those familiar products that Corning was making, those do not have that same sort of shock. All right, we have our family of monsters on our monster, but we got the little baby monster left to go. We got one last little creature to be added. I love that you're adding a little baby on the top. So this is also going to have a hole drilled into the monster that this monster will go onto that had a hole in the monster that it went onto, right? We told you there's going to be a lot of holes drilled in this thing tonight. And so we've got one final hole to drill here to make sure that our little baby can be attached to the other monster. Yeah, so we got a question about the drill that he's using. So this is a drill, but the rod that's in it isn't a standard drill bit. It's actually a tungsten rod, and tungsten is typically used for welding. And you have to heat that up so that it melts the glass as it reams it through, but it doesn't actually, if you get the glass hot, it would like push in, right? So you're actually just drilling through, and you have to be very careful with tungsten as well, because if you torque on it, you'll crack it. You'll break it really easy, but it's a very strong metal if you keep it straight. So yes, it is a drill, but it's a tungsten rod. And a regular drill bit would actually start to stick. Now, not only would it not cut, but it would start to stick. We actually have to get our pipes hot to get the glass to stick to them. Typically, hot things stick to hot things, but tungsten, there's some magic going on there that it doesn't want to stick. Yeah. Great question. Now, you can have tungsten rods that are just in little handles, and you can do it by hand, but the drill's a lot faster and a little cooler looking. We bring in more toys. We like our toys. All right, so we got our final little, the ball here. This is our baby monster. We got all of our parts. Yes. Woo! Now, no fear, though. We still have half an hour to go, and we've got some more work to be done. We've got all the parts, but unfortunately, all of these little monsters can't see where they're going. None of them have a face, and they can't smile at us. So here we've got some painting to do. Now, he's got rods of glass here, stringers. This is just solid glass color that have been pulled into small strings of glass. And he's going to pick and choose a few of his favorites and start to draw the little faces on these monsters. As you can see here in the shop, we have 2 examples of the monsters that are part of his series. And they each have little faces. We got a double-headed one over here on the far side. And then the little ghosts that are on the top, they have little faces. And so we've got a little bit more decorating to do with all those little faces. Now, these haven't been cold worked yet. They're not really ready to be passed around or anything. But if you want to take a closer look at Austin's work, I highly suggest you go out to the opening of the shop right here at the Corning Museum. And there's a few pieces that he has for sale out there. Just as a little plug, you can purchase one of these creatures, take it home with you tonight if you want, and have a monster of your own. But you want to take a closer look at those pieces before you take off here tonight, just to take a look at those little faces. we could have maybe put these faces on earlier. You know, we had all these parts. We could have put the faces onto all the parts before we put it onto the piece. But when you're working with solid color, especially soft blue like he has here, they have a tendency to get real melty. And so you can see that the face on our little creatures here, it's very texturized. It's really on the surface of the glass. And so with all these reheats and everything, you would lose all of that beautiful detail. So plus, all being a round ball, it could have sat anywhere, right? And now we can put those little faces exactly where he wants for the final illustration. Now, those of you who are here in-house, you might have also noticed that Austin changed his glasses. Now, we do wear glasses to protect our eyes from any popping and explosions that happen here in the hot shop. But when you're working with these torches, there's what's called sodium flare. So if you try to look at the flame, you don't really see the end of that rod. But if you put on these special didymium glasses, it cuts through that flame, and it's like magic. You just sort of refracts the light differently, and you can actually see what you're doing. The intense heat of these flames can also be very damaging to your eyes, so you want to make sure and protect your eyes as much as possible when working with such hot flames. Oh, he's adorable. Austin says he's going to get some cute little eyebrows on our monster. And the monster's already smiling, so he's a pretty happy monster. He must like having his little friends join him. Learning to draw with these canes can be really tricky because glass heats up very, very quickly. And all those little thin pieces, if you angle the torch in just the wrong direction, get one part too hot, you can end up really burning off that little stringer very, very quickly. going to take a little time to do some heat maintenance here. Some more. All right, so we did have a little bit of a chip form on the end of one of these legs, so we're just working on closing it down, narrowing down. Sure. Narrowing down one little leg and making that just a little bit shorter. But it's kind of a lucky thing because he said in the original, well, that one leg was a little long. Didn't really like how tall it was. He wanted to make sure that it sits and has a little lean to it. So I think this is the monster's way of telling him which one he wanted to be a little shorter. Yeah. It's all part of the plan. Now we have this nice form all put together. It's good to have those air holes. Remember, we poked holes in every single connection so that Jeff's going to add a little bit of air pressure in here and just sort of puff up some of those last forms. Now when you're getting really close to all of this heat, there's a lot of radiant heat coming from this piece. So Catherine and I have both been guarding Austin, just putting a couple pieces of wood between him and the torch. And all the radiant heat of this piece really makes that whole process a little more comfortable. But our little baby and his holder have their little eyes. We are coming in on the last few moments here of our 2300 event. I want to introduce the team one more time. Of course, we've got the one and only Austin Stern has been with us all week long. Yes? Yeah. He has some wonderful pieces for sale here in-house at the Corning Museum of Glass, but you definitely want to check out his website, austinstern.com, and Instagram at @sternglass. He'll have images of all of these beautiful creatures that he's made here with us, and of course, all the earlier creatures that he used to develop this series, monster series. We've got Dane Jack's been here on the pipe this evening, doing some of the heavy lifting here tonight. Jeff Mack's been running a lot of parts and pieces, manning the garage, manning all of the components that come together to make this monster possible. Catherine Ayers, torch extraordinaire. Double fisting the torches tonight, getting all that heat, bringing it together. Definitely want to come and visit the Corning Museum of Glass in May. We have the New Glass Now exhibition opening up. Yeah, 100 pieces of artists from around the world. It's going to be the best exhibition, really showing off the world of glass, all the possibilities, new technologies, experimentation, highly developed work. And that opening is May 12th, but we will have that exhibition open all summer long. Austin is also the first in a series of visiting artists that we will have throughout the summer, focusing on the exhibitors for that New Glass Now. I don't think we're going to get all 100 here, but we do have a very full summer schedule planned, not only in-house, but also more live streams happening almost every Thursday throughout the summer. So check out Corning Museum of Glass, all the Instagram, all the Facebook and website, and you keep track of all the activities that are happening here this summer. Hopefully we'll see a lot of you coming to take classes throughout the summer, classes and workshops. A lot of exciting things happening. You're fine. All right, I think they've all got their eyes. They can see where they're going. Now we want to know how they're feeling. So he's going to be putting the mouths on these little monsters. Anybody else on pins and needles? It gets so exciting at this point. Now he is just using a plain butter knife to push this around. Of all the amazing handmade tools that come out of glass blowing, there's not a lot of manufacturers that make tools for such a specialized skill. But nothing beats a good butter knife. All right, so I heard him say he's got all the parts. So now we've got all the faces, we've got all the connections, all the parts, but we don't want to just throw it in the oven to cool down. You need to really balance out those temperatures. You got hot spots, you got slightly colder spots, and so you want to go for a couple flashes. Those are short heats. We're going to torch certain areas, letting certain other areas cool while others are getting heated up. This particular glass, again, expands and contracts when it heats and it cools. So you want to make sure that it cools very slowly under controlled conditions. So we're going to load it away into our annealing oven once they balance out all these temperatures. And then it'll come down. I think the last one I saw came down over about 36 hours. So you definitely want to keep an eye on the social media for the final pictures of this beautiful monster here tonight. An original Austin Stern never made a piece like this, so you are seeing the first in a brand new series by Austin Stern. this little piece that Jeff's been making? Jeff's gonna get on the silver suit. These are heat protective gear. He needs to grab hold of this piece and load it away into our annealing oven, so allow it to cool down really slowly. And with a piece that takes so long to create, all those parts, all that coordination, you want to make sure that you're nice and calm when you go to load it in the oven. So Jeff will put on the heat protective jacket, gloves, a visor to help protect his face. Those ovens are 905 degrees Fahrenheit, and that is a quick haircut if you don't or protect yourself. We'd like to thank everybody for joining us online, and of course here in-house, 2300 degree March edition. Last flash? All right, last flash. Get your final photos here, folks. It's going to be going away into this oven for a good 36 hours. We'll post the final pictures of the finished piece on the website, cmog.org. Check out austinstern.com. Follow him. He is skyrocketing in his career these days, so it's really exciting to host him here at the Corning Museum of Glass throughout the week. Made some really beautiful monsters here today. It's not a sound in the crowd. There we go. Right into the oven it goes. That's good. All right, Austin Stern, everyone. Fantastic. Great job, team. Catherine, Jeff, Dane. We thank you so much all for coming tonight. Hope you had a really great time here at the Corning Museum of Glass, and hope to see you next time. Thanks so much.